Hello there. I'm going to start this video off with a disclosure. Since I started this channel almost a year ago, every device that I've reviewed, I've paid for out of pocket. And it's always been my dream to not do that. I always knew I was going to have to pay for some of the devices I'd review. But my hope would be in the future that I would receive, review copies from manufacturers, and therefore I could review more or not necessarily pay as much. I've spent a lot on this channel, and I'm happy to have done that, but it is expensive, and so that's kind of a dream of mine. So when we monetized at the end of last year, that was a pretty big deal, and that will definitely help cut into the costs, a little bit. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is this video will begin the first time I've reviewed a device in which I did receive a review copy from the manufacturer. In fact, let me be more accurate. I've actually received the device from the manufacturer. The company in question is Ruertu. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, so hopefully I'm close. I haven't heard of the company before. I'll get to that in a second, but they reached out to me based on my videos, asked if I would review their device. I replied. They had given me a link to their device on Amazon, and after reviewing that, I basically expressed the idea that I had some concerns about the device, particularly around their price point, and was very clear that if I did see issues with the device in the review process, that I would absolutely talk about those in the video. And they just said fine, and we'll send you the device. I expected to receive a review copy, a copy that I would either send back to them or move on to the next reviewer, but that didn't happen. They're actually giving me the device, so it does create a little bit of a conflict of interest, and I want to be very clear about that. Having said that, as I noted, I've been very clear with the company that I will be doing the review as I would review any other device, including one that I had paid for myself. And I'm not under any, I don't have any contract with Ruertu. I don't have any particular agreement. I have free reign to do what I do in these videos, and I intend to do that. So I just wanted to be very clear about how I attained this device, and that, at least on paper, conflict of interest that exists, since I did in fact receive compensation for the review. But I can promise you that I will definitely be reviewing this device as I would any other, as I mentioned before. And I'll just say to that point that the integrity of the channel is really important. I'm here to help people, and that's basically it. That's what I get out of doing this. And so it doesn't help if I'm putting together reviews that are, maybe not telling the whole truth, at least from my perspective, or, that holds back in some way, or emphasizes points that are, out of proportion to the experience. All that stuff doesn't help people. And it's my intention, to try to be as fair and as equitable as I can as I approach every review. So I'm not going to approach this review with any bit of favoritism. I don't intend to approach this review with, trying to be harsher because the result of trying to overcompensate. I'm just going to try to review this as fair as I can. And the other side of that coin, of course, is you as a viewer. The only reason why these videos have value is because you see my experiences, I'm sharing them with you, and you're counting on the fact that they are as I'm saying that they are. So I take that very seriously, and I just wanted to say that. So anyway, that's my full disclosure, but I am going to go ahead and move forward with the review, and it should be interesting. So let's start off with this company, Ruertu, and it's Ruertu. So again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't know much about them, but here's what I can tell you. So they're definitely from China. There's no question about that. The device that they've sent, and we're going to do the unboxing, so we'll see it, by specification and visually, both in terms of the hardware and the software, is pretty clear to me. It's the Bigme Eink Color Plus device, which I have right here, actually. It's one of the very first devices that I've ever reviewed on this channel. And so I actually have quite a few positive things to say about this device. It's not perfect, but this was kind of my one of my 3 primary e-ink devices until the Note Air 3C came, and then that supplanted this device. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth, because that's going to be relevant to reviewing this device as well. So what does that mean? Does that mean that Ruertu is part of the Bigme company, like perhaps either a rebranding or a subsidiary, or is it a separate entity that has a contractual relationship with Bigme? I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. And I suppose it doesn't matter. I'm going to review the device regardless of that fact, but yeah, that's all I can say. I don't know anything about who this company is, other than there's clearly some relationship with Bigme, as you see, the specification, the look of the device, and so on. It's pretty clear that that's the case. So that's what I know. If I learn more, I'll share it, but that's what I know for now. Okay, so I've already alluded to this, but let's talk about the context of this particular device and where it fits into the marketplace. So as I mentioned, I previously had on my desk, as a little note taker, the Bigme Inknote Color Plus. And that device, I've always liked that device, but I, didn't really recommend it, and simply because of the price point, although there are some concerns around the software itself, and we'll get to that, I'm pretty sure, as we go through this review. But Bigme did release another device later called the Bigme Inknote Color Plus Lite. And that device, I actually think, is better positioned. So the 3C device retails for about $500, and the Inknote Lite device retails for about just under $480. So there is a $20 savings from one to the other. I think the Lite device is still a little overpriced. I think, a $450, even a $425 actually would be a really good deal for that particular device. But it's certainly more price competitive than the Inknote Plus, which is at that, I think it retails currently for about $650. At the time I bought mine, it was $700, so quite a bit of a premium there. And that's the only reason I really couldn't recommend it. So this device, the Ruertu device, retails, well, it's listed right now on Amazon for $600, or I should say its price currently is $600. The list price is higher than that. We'll ignore the list price. Right now, if you go to Amazon, it's $600. So $600 is a $100 premium over the 3C. Now, it is true that the Ruertu comes with a cover. We'll see what the quality of that cover is. Generally speaking, covers are sold fairly expensively. It's one of those areas that are kind of overpriced, to be honest with you. That and stylus nibs are kind of overpriced, all things considered. But regardless, that's the way that it is. And the Note Air 3C does not come with a cover if you buy from Amazon. But the Ruertu device does. So let's just assume that the value of that cover is $50. At least that's the retail value. Then the gap then between those two devices would be $50. So it's getting closer. And from a hardware perspective, there are some advantages to the Ruertu device, or the Bigme Inknote Color Plus device, over the Note Air 3C. The key will be on the software side, and that's where the 3C is far and away the better device. And so one of the interesting questions is regarding this Ruertu device is, did they do any type of changes to Bigme's device to kind of account for that and to improve on the software where it might be more competitive against the 3C? That's the angle in which I'll be reviewing this device, plus to see if there's any actual changes between this device and the Bigme Inknote Plus. On paper, it looks like the same device, but maybe we'll discover that there's other changes as well. To give you a sense of the hardware comparison, the Bigme Color Plus and the Ruertu device have 6 gigabytes of RAM. The 3C has 4, has 128 gigabytes of storage space, where the 3C has 64 gigabytes. Both devices are expandable, by the way, both I think to a terabyte, so that's the same. That is to say the 3C plus the Ruertu Ink Note Color Plus. That's what I mean by both. The Ruertu and Ink Note Plus, or the Ink Note Plus anyway, is a little bit lighter. We'll weigh the Ruertu and validate if that's still true, but not by much. And then the battery on the Ink Note Plus is a little bit bigger than the 3C, but again, that's not by a lot either. So, and I should also point out in completeness, the 3C has a slightly faster processor, but they're both 8 cores. I don't think there's a tremendous advantage there. So again, you can see in a hardware perspective, there is a competitive, set of specs on the Ink Note Plus / Ruertu design. But the question ultimately will be, how does the software play out? And that's where the review is ultimately going to focus on. All right, so with setting all of that aside, let's go ahead and start unboxing this thing and validating our assumptions about how close this device is to the Ink Note Plus, and just taking a look at the setup process and having some fun. All right, let's take a look. Okay, just before we get into this, I neglected to mention a point that I wanted to emphasize. I was comparing the price of the 3C versus this device and talking about the cover being included here and not on the 3C device. That is true if you purchase the device on Amazon, which is the example I indicated. But I do want to point out that if you purchase the 3C device from Books directly, it will come with a cover and there'll be no charge for that. However, the reason why I use my example is that one of the things I do advise people to do is, if there's any chance that they're going to return the device, they really want to purchase from Amazon, because the return policy there is much more favorable to Books' return policy. And BigMe has a policy that's very similar to Books. So returns there are a pain in the arse, and you want to try to avoid that. Having said that, though, I have purchased a number of devices directly from Books because I know I'm not going to return it. I'm crossing my fingers that there'll be no issues with the device, which has been true so far. So just wanted to put that into full context. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go ahead and open this thing up. And just before we do, let's take a look. This is a pretty nondescript box. But here in this corner, we have a number of the specifications, including information about the company, some certifications, and then all these specs are pretty much identical to the BigMe Ink Note Color Plus, as I indicated, except for the camera. So this will be interesting. So the BigMe has a rear camera and a front camera. So could this be one potential difference between this device and the BigMe? I will say that the absence of the front camera will be fairly meaningless to me. I've never used the front camera, so I'm not going to mourn its loss if it's not there. But it would be a curiosity since all the other specs are the same. All right, let's go ahead and get in here. I'm always nervous about unboxings because you really only get one attempt at them. All right, here we go. Because once the wrapping's off, it's pretty much done. Okay. All right, so we'll start here with, this is the cover. Let's open this up. Okay, this is a different cover than the one that comes with the Ink Note Color Plus, and I think that's a good thing. I do like the Ink Note Color Plus cover. Let me, we'll put that here. But there's a couple problems with the cover. And what's interesting, it has a loop too. That's curious. I wonder if there's a magnetic. I'm very curious about that. Okay, this might be more different than the Ink Note Plus than I originally thought. But anyway, this is the original cover. It's nice. It has this, it's a magnetic cover. The two problems with it are that it is a dust magnet. I don't know if the camera is really picking that up, but it does pick up dust quite a bit. Generally, it looks good though. But the other problem is that this magnet, you're tempted to fold it under, But when you do that and you draw on the device, the magnets actually interfere with the screen. So it is kind of a design flaw. So I think it's fortuitous, at least at first glance, that Ruertu decided to go with a different cover. And it looks like it's still a magnetic cover. It just doesn't have a flap. And I guess this loop is to compensate for that. So very interesting. Okay, let's keep going. Put that aside. Lift this up. Okay, here's the device itself. Here's another change, and this was a change I was very much aware of based on the Amazon site, was they went with this black bezel. I think that's a smart move. I think the Bigme's design, which I always felt was at least inspired by the Remarkable. I mean, it's definitely a very different device design-wise than the Remarkable, but it just kind of had some design features that reminded me of that. But to have this white border, I just don't think it went particularly well, and especially given the darkness of the screen. Here we can see that with the black border, I think that's a good choice. Let's take a look at the backs of these devices. Got a nice flat camera. Okay, very good. I like what they did there. It's not a huge difference, but it's a nice aesthetic difference. And I'm feeling around, and the build quality seems to be pretty good. And that was the case with the Eink Note Color Light. Sorry, the Eink Note Color Plus, rather. Let's go ahead and test the magnets. Okay, it's got a pretty good grip. Oh, it's nice, soft, faux leather design. That's good. Yeah, that's nice. I think that's an improvement over what we had before. What do we have here? That's interesting, a little FCC certification sticker. I don't think I've ever seen those before, at least not loose. Let's go ahead and pry this out. I think that's everything. Yep, okay, so let's take a look at the box. All right, this is some nibs. Looks like there's probably 2 nibs in there. I'm not sure if you can make it out, but there's 2 nibs like so. Okay, you've got a USB-C cable, like that. All right. And presumably somewhere, okay, there's the stylus. Make sure. And then there's a little bit. So it looks like that's a quality control sticker. You've got some documentation, which I always won't look at. Okay, this is a pretty standard design. I actually am in the process of reviewing. Let me put this over white there so you can see it better. I'm in the process of reviewing the Pocketbook InkPad X Pro, and it's using the same stylus. And this is also, I believe it is, except, yes, this is the exact same stylus. There's a button right there. Wow, this is in fact, here it is. Here's the stylus I had with the X Pro. And they're pretty much the exact same stylus. So, okay. It's an okay stylus. It's not a great stylus. And this actually is a deviation from the Bigme device that has a Bluetooth stylus. So the Bigme device had some Bluetooth buttons. It was a charge stylus. You charged it to the side of the device with these points. But the charge wasn't for writing, it was just for the Bluetooth buttons here. And that was actually kind of a nice feature. For example, you could set these buttons to a number of configurations, and one of them was to refresh the screen. That's one that I particularly liked a lot. So that's not the case here. This is using a standard common stylus. There's actually a company called Kingwright, and one of their versions, I believe, is this very design. I'm not as sure about the button, but the rest of it looks almost identical. So hopefully this button will be programmable. That would be cool. If I could make that into a refresh button, I would prefer that. Okay. All right, so pretty standard. It is different, so we've seen some differences already with the Big Me Ink Note Color Plus in the case and the stylus, but everything else, you know, a couple nibs and a USB charger cable is pretty standard. Okay, let's put that aside. Let's go ahead and boot this thing up. So already there's some things I like better than the Ink Note Plus, and some things I'm not as favorable with. So the cover is an improvement, the stylus a step backwards, but this is kind of a good sign. So hopefully there'll be other changes as well. So let me just kind of flip through this entire listing so you can see if your language is represented there. I'm going to go ahead and go back and pick English, because allegedly that's my language. I'm going to agree because I have no choice. All right, let's go ahead and initialize the settings. That sounds good. I'm going to join Wi-Fi. I'm going to put my password in and then we'll cut back. All right, we're back. We're connecting now. Okay, so here's some of the gesture settings. They have the set to back. Let's see if we can change that. Yep, there's some other possibilities there. Set to back to home screen. Okay, it's the same list. It looks, oh, there's a second page. I missed that. Okay, E-Ink Center. Okay, we'll probably, okay, I like refresh in the corner. That's perfect. Swipe up and down. Let's see what that is. Okay, volume or the lighting. Very good. And then swiping in from the side to go back. I guess we'll just leave that. Go to the next step. Okay, this is definitely just like Big Me. We can either go with the office style or the tablet style. We'll go ahead and pick the office style. We'll skip this. Okay, so that's the home screen. The E-Ink Center, this is exactly like Big Me, so I'm familiar with that. Okay, we just saw that in the gestures. Long press and hold the app to drag and exchange positions, right? So a customizable. And by the way, this is another great example of how much this device kind of is emulating the Note Air 3C, because if we, and this is true of course for the Big Me device as well. So here's the, let me see if I can move this over. So here's the 3C device, and let me turn on front lighting just so it's a little more obvious. There we go. I'll do that here. Actually, I want cold light. There we go. Okay. So you notice how, you know, they have of course I chose this, but they have the icons on the side, and there's this little blue coloring to those icons. That's the exact same thing here. So you can I mean, it's just visually, you know, shows how much these are positioned to compete with each other. Okay, so, and then by the way, this is the cold lighting at full, and this is the cold lighting at full. This is a much bluer lighting, and this is a little more of a white lighting. Thank you, Alexa. Go ahead and turn yourself off. Okay, let's keep going. So yeah, you can definitely customize all the items that are showing up here. You can either have them appear or not appear. So we'll go through that detail when we do the visual tour, but that's, and then of course you can move it up and down. If there's more apps, then you have space on the side. Okay, that's pretty straightforward tutorial, and we are up and running. All right, let's go ahead and just start the process of seeing how difficult or easy it is to start Google Play. Okay, there is our Google Play Store. second. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and sign into my account. We'll go ahead and jump ahead. And we're in the Google Play Store. Okay. Well, so far this is looking pretty snappy. Let's just check a few. Let's check what the warm lighting looks like. Okay. Pretty good. We'll do both colors at full. That's interesting how those icons aren't aligned. All right. Very interesting. Generally, I think a positive start, again, except for the stylus. I think that's probably the kind of the big disappointment so far, but we'll see how that plays out. And there's no magnetic connections either, so that's why they have this loop. So that's one step back, but visually and the cover, a good step forward, and we're just going to have to see how the software plays out. So that's something I'll be testing and taking a much closer look at over the next few weeks. All right, I think that does it for this video. Any questions or comments, go ahead and pop that into the comments. And otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. Oops, I almost forgot. We need to do the weigh-in. Let me go ahead and get the scale going. And here we are, and we'll start weighing. This is going to be 462 grams, so that's about 30 grams heavier than the Eink Note Plus. And it's, let's see, 18 grams heavier than the 3C. I expect the stylus to add another 8 grams. No, actually added about 10. And then let's go ahead and put the case into the mix, and the total is about 704. The Eink Note Plus was 702, so they're pretty, that's actually within rounding margins of each other. And then the 3C with everything is 720, so this is just a hair lighter, a little bit lighter, about 16 grams than the 3C with its case and stylus. So that's your weigh-in. And then one last thing, I think I had alluded to this, but there is no front camera on this. So another hardware difference between this and the Eink Note Plus, and that's fine. No, I'm not going to miss that at all. So that's actually probably a good choice not to have that in there. Okay, that is going to do it. I will see you in the next video as we do the visual tour. All right, have a great day.